When Jose Altuve lifted that 3-run home run right over the left field wall in Texas to give the Astros the lead in the ninth inning for their eventual comeback win, taking all 3 games in Arlington, we all thought, here we go again. This team is inevitable. They're about to at least go back to the World Series and not win back-to-back championships for the first time since 2000 for any MLB team to do. The Astros really cannot be stopped. Well, skip ahead a little over a year, and the turns have tabled more than any of us could have imagined. This team doesn't suck, and they're in a far better position than a lot of other teams in baseball are at the moment. But that doesn't mean they're in a very good position. And here we are with this franchise continuously getting lesser and lesser in talent each year. But not just talent alone, more than that, the stuff that also played a big part in all the winning we've seen go on in Houston since 2017. Really quick as always, if you're part of the 59% of viewers not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button if you enjoy the videos, as yes, the number one reason why the Houston Astros went to 7 straight ALCS appearances and won 2 championships was because of talent. And yes, some cheating involved that first go around, but talent is number one, always, for any winner. But you can't underestimate the leadership and ways the team was able to gel because of the leaders that they had. It started with Jose Altuve, and it's continued because, he's the longest tenured Astro who's been there since back when this thing existed. He's a future Hall of Famer, one of the greatest second basemen of all time. I mean, you could argue pretty easily he's the most important Houston Astro of all time. That's not crazy to say at all. He's still a leader there and will end his career as an Astro, which is great, obviously, but other than him, yeah, this organization really has something against keeping their best players over the years. The guys they drafted, developed, Houston's homegrown guys. It's been a combination of that and poor spending decisions when they do decide to drop some more money than usual, and this really could be leading the Astros down a bad path. First, it was George Springer, and I've said this in previous videos, but him leaving was probably the least worrisome thing of all the homegrown guys. Springer was awesome in Houston, obviously, but looking at how their outfield looked to be shaping up without him, you didn't really need to pay him the $150 million the Blue Jays paid him. That's fine, but all the others after Springer, bad. Really, really bad decisions that look even worse now with other contexts that we'll get to soon. Looking back, it's so easy to say this, but even in 2020, they should have traded George Springer when they had him. Trade him away for something. Like, come on. If there was ever a year to trade a player at all, let alone 1 month away from free agency, it was 2020. But no. So off to Toronto he went, only for 2021 to have the same outcome, but with another homegrown star. The Astros decided not to trade Carlos Correa either, despite him being a year from free agency. And I mean, hey, they were good that year, went to the World Series. You can justify that at least to an extent until you realize they were never going to keep Correa. Their best offer was for 5 years and worth $160 million, which is a lot of money per year, but also not the years Correa was looking for, and you'll soon see a pattern. Now, with Springer, apparently he didn't want to return to the Astros by the end. Jim Crane, the owner, had said before the season that re-signing him was top priority, but nothing ever materialized. In this case specifically, I could see Springer eventually just preferring to leave Houston so he can distance himself from the Astros cheating scandal controversy surrounding the team that was so hot at the time. I'm not saying that was fully the reason, or that that was a reason for every player who's left, but for him especially, I could see that at least partially being why. And I mean, when you think of George Springer on the Blue Jays over the last few years, do you think about him cheating with the Astros? I don't know, maybe you do, but I just feel like he has distanced himself pretty successfully from it, and it helps that he was never very outspoken about it during the controversy, like Correa, for example. And so Correa, after turning down 5 years, 160 to stay in Houston, ended up getting better options financially. He did have to settle for a short Twins deal at first, get much better options initially with the Giants and Mets, although we all know how that turned out, but he did still get more overall with the Twins in the end, and more than he would have gotten in Houston by a lot. So there's that. And there's also the fact that the Astros have objectively been not even remotely close to the shortstop production Correa has provided since he left. Jeremy Pena just has not been it. But not just stat-wise, Correa next to Altuve was the heart and soul of the Houston Astros. You could say whatever you want about how hated he was outside of Houston, but inside that clubhouse and in Houston, he was definitely a spark plug, a leader, someone people looked up to, and not just literally. I mentioned how set the Astros outfield was even after Springer left, and that's because it featured Kyle Tucker and Yordan Alvarez. Now with Yordan, they were fortunate enough to lock him up in 2022 for 6 years on an incredibly team-friendly contract. He's only making an average of about $20 million a year for the 6 years with 4 more left on the books. That's a steal, but that's not something they can get away with for everyone or really anyone else. Him and Altuve, that's it. The other outfielder, Kyle Tucker, yeah, he ain't taking a team-friendly deal. And it's not a hot take to say his future contract starts with a 4, and I don't think it's crazy to argue it can start with a 5 if you want to go that far. Especially, obviously, if he puts up another strong year in 2025. One that won't be in Houston because the Astros were at least smart enough this time to not let their star walk, trading him with a year left before free agency to get some value in return before he inevitably leaves, considering the Astros were never going to be close to the highest bidder. And remember what I said about a pattern. The Astros have a pretty strict policy, it seems, with the length of their contracts. 6 seems to be the highest that it goes. They only offered Correa 5 years. Jose Altuve's been signing 5-year contracts since 2018. Yordan got 6, that's the most ever. And with the newest homegrown star on the market, Alex Bregman, they are refusing to go beyond 6 years. And look, I get it. I do understand and think it's a pretty good model to have to an extent, having a strict limit of years like that. But for some guys, I think you got to make the exception, man. And I think it's more about the overall reality that the Houston Astros are operating a little too cheap, a little too small market. It makes sense for certain teams, I guess, but Houston should be able to keep at least some of their homegrown stars, rather than just Altuve and Yordan, which is only because he took a discount. I mean, these are their guys: Springer, Correa, Tucker, now Bregman, and add Bregman to the list of Astros leaders over the years. He was always a spark plug for the Astros, but especially after Correa left, when that void had to be filled, Bregman's become even more of a leader as he's aged and become more of a seasoned veteran. And as for those poor spending choices Houston's made in recent years, money that could have gone for stars they already had, they gave Jose Abreu over $58 million over 3 years, only for him to forget how to play baseball. And after contract talks between the Astros and Alex Bregman kind of just stalled and went nowhere, they decided to recently go out and get Christian Walker for first base. And the plan is to now have Isaac Paredes, a player they got from the Cubs for Tucker, to play third base. Scott Boras recently commented that over time, teams learn if you're running from leadership and talent, you're running from the ultimate goal. And I get it. Dealing with Scott Boras is most definitely a pain in the ass, but that's not a bad point, especially in this specific scenario. Alex Bregman being the leader he is and what he's done with this franchise in particular, the only franchise he's ever known up until this point. I think MLB reporter Jeff Passan also put it pretty well on X/Twitter. He said the Houston Astros have traded their best player, Kyle Tucker, which this is the one thing I disagree with here. How are we forgetting about Yordan Alvarez so easily? He's a top 5 hitter in the game and right now a better overall player than Kyle Tucker, I think. I guess he does add more from a defensive standpoint, but I think Yordan is better. But anyway, he said they traded Tucker, are letting go of Alex Bregman, who has the most WAR for them since his first full season in 2017, while in the meantime, they're going to pay first baseman Christian Walker and Jose Abreu a combined $39.5 million in 2025. Jose Abreu isn't even on the team anymore. Passan said the consequences of an unwillingness to go beyond 6 years on a contract reveal themselves in moments like this. Bregman and Tucker were drafted and developed by the Astros machine, which will struggle to retain its best talent as long as it places arbitrary restrictions on itself. This is an uncapped sport. The best players get more than 6 years in free agency. The Astros remain formidable, a team with Walker, Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve, Yainer Diaz, Jeremy Pena, Framber Valdez, Hunter Brown, Josh Hader, and more. They will be a contender and have the talent to win a World Series, but they are an objectively lesser team than last year, and that's no small thing in a close AL West. And yeah, really, really well put. This Astros team doesn't suck. They still should be a contender, and they're in a very winnable division, at least from the way it looks right now. But their habit of losing almost every homegrown player they have, the guys who have been so key from both a talent and leadership perspective, and their extreme hesitation on not giving certain players more than 5 or 6 years, or any players that much money, but not making any exceptions no matter how important they are to the franchise, I mean, that looks to be what really might sink this current Astros ship for good. Maybe you feel otherwise, though. Maybe this is exactly the route they should go. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you for watching.